The pros and cons of digital Judaism, revisited. I've been thinking a lot about Jewish innovation in digital Judaism of late for two reasons. First, my wife and I are planning on spending more and more time in the state of Montana, where one of our daughters has moved more or less permanently. And the only congregational options for me there are a Reform synagogue that does not have Shabbat morning services, and Chabad, which I find problematic given their gender philosophy and approach. Should I consider creating my own Shabbat morning Havruta, and what technology and social media skills would I need to do that? The second reason is that almost 3 years into the Smicha program at PRS, I've been somewhat shocked at how much more comfortable I've become in using technology and some social media as part of my rabbinic training. So I decided to go back to the podcast I did as the final assignment of our required Judaism Unbound class in January of 2024, addressing the question of the pros and cons of digital Judaism, in order to see how my thinking on the topic has evolved over the last year and a half. So here is a somewhat edited version of my views from the time that nonetheless is aligned with the meaning and content from that time. At 66, and even 1 year into our innovative and pretty radical PRS Smicha program, I still consider myself a pretty old school Jew. What do I mean by that? I suppose I remain pretty comfortable with the traditions I've grown up with and raised my family with. Friday night dinners, lighting candles and doing Kiddush at home, and actively participating in weekly in-person Shabbat services. Also, I'm not and never have been very comfortable with technology in general. While I wouldn't say I'm a non-adopter, I'm more of a kicking and screaming adopter. I adopt new technologies when I essentially have no real choice but to do so. I now consider myself really doing something innovative by actually giving Siri voice commands. That said, there were many things I found compelling about the Judaism Unbound class in general, and in particular the podcasts with Denise Handlarsky of SecularSynagogue.com and Juan Mejia of Bechol Lashon. Secular Synagogue is an entirely online Jewish community whose aim is to reach out to the broadest possible audience of Jewishness, focusing on making Jewish learning, social justice, and creative supportive community as accessible as possible, even in 5 minutes of Judaism per day. Bechol Lashon supports the development of Jewish identity and prayer practice globally, in particular in places where Judaism was previously inaccessible, such as in Africa and Asia, as well as many rural communities. As a longtime interfaith married Jew, I've been pushing the boundaries of Jewish identity for more than 40 years. While expressing my Judaism within the traditional Jewish institutional world, I've also been working hard to rethink Jewish identity, to express universal values that can speak to my religiously and racially diverse family, including our 2 adopted Asian sons, as well as my non-Jewish wife and her family. To me, both Handlarsky and Mejia are wonderful examples of how the digital revolution has created a pathway to democratize institutional religion from the ground up and radically expand the target audience of active and committed Jews. But somehow my old school Jewish nature also leaves me a little uneasy with how unbounded Judaism can become if completely untethered to physical places and in-person communities. 2 recent anecdotes come to mind that pull me in opposite directions on the issue. A few weeks ago, at a Kiddush luncheon, we met a couple that we had not met in our 2+ years of regular Shabbat attendance. They shared that since COVID, they preferred participating in services on Zoom and then regularly walked over from their home for Kiddush luncheon when the cantor began chanting Adon Olam. Something about that didn't sit well with me. On the other hand, I've been participating in our shul's daily online minyan, 30 to 35 minutes per day, including a 5-minute Devar Torah, where leadership of daily prayers are led by different congregants, and mourners are able to recite the Kaddish. Since I've been attending, we always have a minyan with a minimum of 12 to 13 people. About 4 to 5 of our minyanaires live out of state. Some of them are former members of the synagogue. Or a couple live a meaningful driving distance from the shul and wouldn't participate if the minyan was only in person. This group evolved over COVID and has been praying together for over 4 years and is clearly a meaningful and supportive community within our broader synagogue community. While we don't read Torah on Mondays and Thursdays as we would do if we were meeting in person, the daily 5-minute Divrei Torahs that almost every minyaner ultimately shares in our group probably create a more meaningful Torah mindfulness than rushing through the actual reading of the Torah, as so many minyans I've participated in seem to do. And this practice also enables more people to lead Torah participation without having the skill of laning Torah as a necessity. So in the end, our Zoom minyan practice, created out of necessity during COVID, has actually increased and improved participation and Jewish knowledge and identity. Our minyan is a real minyan, just as PRS's controversial 2-year smicha program is a real ordination program, regardless of what more traditional Jews and Jewish institutions might think. So those are my thoughts of 18 months ago. And now, my current reflections. Reflecting back on these observations, I can only say that I've become much less ambivalent about digital Judaism, even though we have the challenge of all digital media, easy access to haters online and their ability to be anonymous or operate with false identities and gain popularity by being as dramatically hateful as possible. But since this is never going away, it only makes it more imperative that we fill the digital airwaves with as much positive Jewish content and communal support as possible. I previously highlighted our Zoom minyan experience, and there is one new participant in our minyan now who strongly reinforces my previous view of why our minyan is so positive. A younger mom, whom I would guess was attending Shabbat services a couple of times a month, joined our group a few months ago when her father passed away. Her devotion to attending our minyan every day is underscored by the occasions when she participates and figures out how to recite Kaddish, even when needing to drive her kids to school during our 8 to 8:30 a.m. time slot. It has truly been an honor to witness her daily commitment and improving Hebrew davening skills, all of which inspires me to be sure to make our minyan every day and to improve my own davening and prayer knowledge. Albeit a single anecdote, this type of experience is why I've become such an avid, non-ambivalent supporter of digital Judaism. It's impossible to know the perfect formula for creating meaningful Jewish gateway experiences. But the more available doorways there are, and the easier it is to open them to the broadest possible definition of Jewish people, as Denise Handlarsky might say, the better off the Jewish people will be. There will always be an orthodoxy that needs to have a high and dense metaphorical mechitza. And yes, I acknowledge as an old school Jew that I remain, and a liberal rabbi to be. I take comfort in that. But my rabbinate will be about opening as many doors as possible to people who genuinely want to learn and explore their Jewish identities. And digital Judaism will be an essential tool toward achieving that end. Toda Rabbah.